Good evening, and good evening. I am here again with my co-game master Crow, and we're going to be hopefully having some fun this evening. I'm going to be walking through a new adventure module that I have written over on the Scribbler's Fantastical Workshop blog, my blog, and I'm going to be introducing this module to you as part of this live stream. I'll also be hanging out here on Twitch with you guys, so if you want to drop in to chat and leave any comments, please feel free. For those of you who've been watching my stream or the stream over at Dungeon Master Graham, who is partnering with me in the development of the Battlestorm online campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, you may be familiar with some of the things I'm saying. If you are a player in any of my games, please do not listen to this stream. There are spoilers for the game that I'm presently running, or if you intend on being a player in the Battlestorm online campaign setting that Ted Burgess and I are developing, then also please do not listen to this stream. But if you are a game master, or if you're interested in collecting access to new Dungeons and Dragons adventures that are free to play, then please feel free to come along with me for the ride this evening. So what I'm going to be doing tonight is just walking through my new adventure module. And so just to set the scene a little bit for you guys, we are moving away from the Winterwood and Lake Runemirror, which involved the last adventure module that I wrote for the Battlestorm online setting, Ominous Signs Before the Breach, and the last quest adventure in that module was Astrid's Prophecy. So the players are moving on from their investigation of the strange prophecy produced by the mysterious lady, almost like a Valkyrie, Astrid, who lives on her hut and prophesies by Lake Runemirror. And we are moving back to the environs of Yggdrasil, Lake Mimmiesbrunner, Hobgoblin Hill, and in particular Goblin Town, as Ruby Knight, one of our quest givers for this setting, asks the players to not just investigate Goblin Town, but to enter Goblin Town and slay a terrible monster who is reigning over the goblins in a very tyrannical fashion. This monster goes by the name of Shadow Maw. And so, given this quest, our adventurers journey out to the region of Yggdrasil and attempt to infiltrate Goblin Town and learn more about this terrible monster. And I'm going to go ahead and get back to my blog page. Likely our adventurers are coming from one of these 5 hometowns: Nidavellir, Lozalfar, Mio-Elise, Dina Samirius, or Ashkelon, traveling overland or teleporting to one of the safe zones and then moving around Lake Mimmiesbrunner over to the Yggdrasil region and then in toward Goblin Town. Now, entering the environs of Goblin Town, I have, I've set up some virtual tabletop maps for you guys, just to give you an idea what the players will be confronting. And as you can see, the entrance to Goblin Town is guarded. There's a raider force of 4 hobgoblins in the woods outside of Goblin Town. And the entrance to Goblin Town is guarded by 2 hobgoblins and 4 goblins. Again, this module is made for 4 to 6 level 2 characters starting out. And some of the instances for this game are actually rather difficult if the players just take the notion that they're going to come at this full bore and try to defeat all the monsters by combat, particularly in the beginning. Now, though these sets of monsters may not seem that challenging, there are more monsters behind the gateway to Goblin Town. Now, if the adventurers are cunning, they may attempt to sneak around the hobgoblins, climb up over the hilly terrain here, and drop into the river behind the goblins. They might be able to succeed at this if they are, well, successful in stealth checks, or they may climb into the river and swim upstream underwater and then climb up the waterfall underwater. It's not a raging waterfall, but it would present some challenges in order to enter Goblin Town. Upon entering Goblin Town, there are a number of additional obstacles. And you can see I haven't actually filled Goblin Town with all the monsters yet, but I've given you a good representation of the Goblin force in Goblin Town, so you can see that there are quite a few. So coming in to Goblin Town, if the players are engaged in combat, a force of 4 hobgoblins and 8 more goblins moves in to reinforce the defenders. So getting involved in a relatively difficult combat for second level characters in such an instance. If the players manage to sneak in, particularly if they are, I don't know, disguised as hobgoblins or swimming in the river, they may slip past the guards or bluff their way past the guards. Now, entering into the area of Goblin Town proper, they run into 3 different factions of goblins. One are the goblin fanatics, who are practically, well, who almost worship Shadow Maw as if she was a god. They have created this shrine here to Shadow Maw, and in addition, they occupy this encampment here. There are a set of normal or regular goblins that occupy this encampment, and both of these sets are likely to be very hostile to any players that encounter them. But there is a third set of goblins here, and these are what I call the Fearful Goblins in the adventure. And these Fearful Goblins are actually trying to escape Goblin Town. Now, why are they trying to escape? So Shadow Maw is a Barghest that has journeyed to Midgard from Svartalfheim. She emerged in this cave series, traveling through the roots of Yggdrasil, and immediately slew an adventurer in these caves. After slaying the adventurer, she devoured the adventurer's deep shard crystal, which formed in the shadow of the roots of Yggdrasil, and she found its taste to her liking. Over time, she and her dark influence enabled her to collect a large force of goblin followers, and right now she is developing an army, not just of goblins, but of undead, and she does this by devouring monsters. Whenever she devours a monster, they are transported to the realm of Svartalfheim to serve her Dark Lord King Doomshallow, who is a Dwergar who lives in the mountain fortress of Saria. Now, Doomshallow is happy to allow Shadow Maw to continue her exploits in Midgard, because Shadow Maw's exploits result in the swelling of Svartalfheim's army. Now, these goblins, the Fearful Goblins, have realized that there is no escape for them from Shadow Maw, and so long as they stay here in Goblin Town, So they wish to be free, and they are led by a goblin by the name of Mila Gloomflower. Mila was actually once swallowed by Shadow Maw, but she stabbed her in the throat when Shadow Maw swallowed Mila, and then Shadow Maw spat her out, and thus Mila was able to escape. Escaping Shadow Maw's clutches, Mila slunk back to Goblin Town and informed the Fearful Goblins of her terrible ordeal, and then worked to try and convince them to flee. Now, this only worked on a number of goblins who actually managed to sneak out and get out into the lands of Midgard, and actually encountered a group of adventurers who learned of their plight, which is one reason why our group of adventurers, the players, happen to be here at this time. So Mila is on the lookout for anything odd or strange or off. So if she sees the adventurers, she may wave them over to the huts containing the Fearful Goblins. And so the players have a potential alliance with goblins. Now, these goblins are too reticent to actually attack the other goblins, but they're willing to provide safe havens in the form of their huts for the players to rest. And they're also willing to give the players some information about what lies beyond. And what lies beyond Goblin Town is the Hollow of Horrors. Now, I haven't yet populated the Hollow of Horrors in the virtual tabletop yet, but this warren containing 10 rooms is full of foul undead, various predatory monsters, and the goblin servants of Shadow Maw. The whole Hollows is basically a collection of dark predators, for lack of a better term. And in particular, one of the areas that is most dangerous is area 15 and 16, and I'll go ahead and show you I've made it like an expanded map for this region, and I'm quite happy. I'm pretty happy with the encounter that I've developed for area 15 and 16, as it involves some unique spins on typical monsters. Now, one of my favorite monsters in the Dungeons and Dragons universe happens to be the giant spider, especially for low-level characters. It's a really freaky critter and can be a lot of fun in some respects to encounter. They are poisonous, they fling webs, they can restrain characters, and this adds to the tension of any combat in which low-level characters are engaged with these terrible monsters. And so and let's see, I'm gonna try to give you guys a good view of this encounter region that I've developed. So there are 4 giant spiders in this area who have set up trip lines in this region here, in this region here, and in this region here. And if any of the players happen to trip on these trip lines, failing a perception check to see it, they will alert the spiders. Now, the spiders, they will pounce, and when they do, they jump out and will fling webs at the players as they enter one of these 3 locations. And when they do, they basically hope to break up the character's movement. So once they fling their webs, then they'll jump back into their individual cubby holes and wait for the players to begin to creep into their lair. Now, this lair is also shrouded in various webs, and so any squares in which the players try to cross where they're dealing with these webs happen to be difficult terrain. Now, they can try and burn through the webs at the rate of 5 feet per turn if they have a fire source, but this inhibition is going to make it easier for the spiders to pounce on them. Now let's talk a little bit about the spiders. I've meshed the spiders up with the traditional giant spider, and 3 of them are ghoul spiders. So I've mashed the ghoul template with the giant spider template. So any character that is bitten by one of these giant ghoulish spiders must make a DC, I think it's a 10, Constitution saving throw, or be paralyzed. And one of the spiders is a giant ghast spider, meshing up the template of the giant spider and the ghast, so giving it the aura of ghast stench, which poisons characters that are near them, and then also giving it the ghoul paralysis or the ghast paralysis as well. I think this will be a very challenging encounter for level 2 to 3 characters. Now, one thing to consider with the Hollow of Horrors and Goblin Town is that players may advance from level 2 all the way to level 4 as they go through this series of encounters. Now, there are numerous other encounters in the Hollow of Horrors which are rather fun. For example, Area 14 contains 2 goblin skeletons who work with a roper that is in area 17, and if they see adventurers coming down this corridor, they'll shoot a couple of arrows at them and then flee toward the roper, hoping that the roper will rope in a couple of adventurers. These goblin skeletons, they enjoy gnawing on bones. Even though they can't actually eat, they enjoy the feeling of the bones of the living being crunched in their teeth. So yeah, a ridiculous set of horrors in the Hollow of Horrors. One more set that I think is very interesting is there's a hobgoblin captain who has succumbed to the influence of Gnungagap and turned into a hobgoblin white, and he has 2 zombies under his command and 4 shadows under his command, and he uses his white abilities to the fullest in any assaults on adventurers. So there are, as I said before, a number of horrific critters in the appropriate name Hollow of Horrors. Now, moving on to the big finale encounter, I guess I should probably talk to you a little bit more about Shadow Maw. So Shadow Maw is a Barghast. She occupies this throne room here. She enjoys taking on the form of both a goblin and a Barghast, and in goblin form, she has the statistics of a goblin boss. She wields a flail made out of deep shard, which grants her +1 to hit, and on critical hits does an extra 1 necrotic damage. But in her Barghast form is when she's most terrifying. Her maw drips shadow, does an additional 1d6 necrotic damage on top of your typical Barghast template. And she is able to belch forth creatures from Svartalfheim, from her maw, some undead creatures that she had previously devoured in the past. And she can spend an action to do this. She can belch forth a skeleton, a zombie, or a shadow, depending on a roll of die 3. And this is like a breath weapon attack, except it's more like a ally monster summoning attack, and she can use an action to do this in addition to her attacks. Also, if she ends her turn in any of the areas shadowed by one of Yggdrasil's roots, such as here in front of the throne or here behind the throne, she regains 10 hit points. And if any of the players are so unlucky as to perish by one of the bites of Shadow Maw and turn into a shard of deep shard, she can devour that as an action to gain 15 hit points. So a lot of extra special abilities for our Barghest Shadow Maw here. Now, in this encounter, there are also a number of other creatures. There are Hobgoblin Zombies. I think there are about 6 of them in the Area 23 here. Also commanded by a Hobgoblin riding a warg. Of course, I haven't placed these on my virtual tabletop map yet. In Area 24, there are 6 skeletons, primarily used as archers to defend the tankish creatures in Area 23. There are 2 shadows occupying the Yggdrasil roots. There's Shadow Maw herself, a Dwergar, and a Drow, both advisors from Svartalfheim. And last of all, a Shadow lurks in Area 25 next to the gateway to Svartalfheim, which is visible here. So actually, you know what? Before I end, I'd also like to talk a little bit about some of the treasure. We've talked about all the scary monsters, and there are some interesting bits of treasure in this dungeon. One is a Wand of Magic Missiles, which I think is a fantastic treasure for, any player that happens to get it at this level. But there is also a unique item that I have created called Phoenix's Tear. And Phoenix's Tear is a dormant legendary item, which is a glove made of crystalline mesh in the shapes of hundreds of tiny teardrops. While wearing this glove, a character may use a bonus action to summon a blade of pure radiance into her hand. So long as this blade exists, it acts as a magical longsword with a finesse and versatile properties. So you can use it with dexterity using the finesse property, or you can two-hand it, gaining a little bit of extra damage, doing like 1d10 damage. If you are proficient in short swords and long swords, you are also proficient in this blade. So in some ways kind of like a sunblade, but like a glove that you can use to conjure a sunblade. You also may use a bonus action to dismiss any blade you summon with Phoenix Tear. If the blade leaves your hand, it disappears after 1 round. In its present dormant state, Phoenix Tear can be used to summon a +1 weapon that does radiant damage. However, and I told my players I really wouldn't be doing special items for them, so I don't know which one of the characters will get this. But one of the things I really enjoy doing is having magic items that have the potential to advance with the characters. And Phoenix Tear is one of these weapons. So if certain circumstances throughout the adventure are met, Phoenix Tear may be awakened, and its powers thus increased by these events throughout this adventure series. Now, Phoenix Tear also has a mated sister glove called Star Rain, which may be found elsewhere in the world of Battlestorm Online. I don't know whether or not I am going to have Star Rain appear in my series of adventurers, but I may let my co-DM and setting creator Ted Burgess know about Phoenix Tear and Star Rain. Well, of course, I guess, yeah, I'll probably let him know at some point. I don't want him to know yet because he's also a player in my game, so, it get a little tricky regarding spoilers and whatnot. All right, so I think that will... Sorry, I had to take a little sip there. I think that will end our walkthrough. If you do go to scribblersfantasticalworkshop.wordpress.com and use my adventure series, please send me a note, write a comment, tell me what you think. If you've got any feedback, please let me know. Of course, these are works that are still in development, and I don't know, at some point we may go over to Dungeon Masters Guild and produce them as a PDF or a hard copy, depending on the level of interest. As ever, you can check out the live streams or recorded videos of live playtests that we have conducted for this ongoing adventure series on YouTube, on my YouTube page, which I also have posted to Scribbler's Fantastical Workshop. So, oh, I see we got some people hanging out here. Um, but thank you guys for joining me. And let's see, for my next stream, we will be playing Battlestorm Online Valhalla. This is Ted's game, but in this same campaign. And going back to, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the campaign map so I can give you guys a little bit of a prelude to what's going to happen. So our party, Stella Requiem, is up in this area near Ashkelon, and we are going to be facing down a stone giant as level 4 characters. In our last session, we convinced some OPCs to join us in our quest to rid this pass from Ashkelon to Mimi's Brunner of a threatening stone giant presence. And so we will be fighting a stone giant in the next games. And this could be interesting, or I don't know. I guess it could be over quick one way or the other for each of us. A little bit of rocket tag, and that will be Thursday evening at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, I shall be myself going back to writing my Hellkey series. I believe my next 2 blog posts will be Myra Hellkey related chapters. We're getting close to the end of the first book, Into Infernia. And when I complete that, I think I might spend a little bit of time doing some world building as I go back and forth through all the episodes and beat them into even better shape for you guys to read, just tighten the consistency and the word usage. But I think I'm going to run a Dungeons & Dragons modern campaign in the Hellkey world eventually. So as I do this world building and tightening up of the first book, I think I am also going to produce some rules for you guys, some Dungeons & Dragons rules for the Hellkey setting. Not enough to create a whole campaign, but I don't know, if you guys want to use Urdrake, for example, as monsters or plumicats or models, then we might have something for you. Or, I don't know, if there's enough interest, maybe I will try and figure out a way to make Urdrakes, plumicats, and models player races. Actually, it wouldn't be too hard. So maybe I will do both monster races and player races for those 3, which would be a lot of fun. I might also... I want to make a specific player class for the mages. I'm not certain if I can do what they do using traditional Dungeons and Dragons classes, so I might end up having to make a class for the mages, or multiple classes for the mages, because each of the mages that we have so far, Myra, Mori, and Beatrice, Luciel, and Sadie, they all have like different sets of abilities. So I'm thinking maybe there's a way that I can build mages modularly with like a core class and a subclass that really focuses them. But right now I'm kind of drawing a blank on how to do that. I'll keep that in the back burner, but that might be something that we also get at the end of Hellkey Infernia. Of course, this will be maybe a month or 2 down the road. I probably will finish Into Infernia, the first book, I would say sometime in March, hopefully. It depends on how many how many editions I make on the way to the end. For some reason, I always think the books are going to be shorter than they end up being. And this one, it's probably tracking toward between 120,000 and 150,000 words. So in any case, thank you all for joining me, and I will see you guys. Actually, hold on. I said the next stream was going to be Thursday. I was wrong. We have a Hellkey reading on Wednesday and some map art before then. So we'll have a Hellkey reading on Wednesday. I'm going to be doing some fantasy map art on Thursday. I might actually start working on Wave Song, which is a city in the world of heaven, quote unquote, for the Hellkey series. It's also a very fey city on the world of Marin, and so I might go ahead and start working on that, even though that's coming toward the end. There's also some work I think I still need to do on maps for the Battle of Sunken Crag, so we'll be working that on Thursday as well, and then we'll have the Battlestorm online game on Thursday during the evening. So a Hellkey reading, some map art, and then Battlestorm online, Ted Burgess's game. Looking forward to seeing you guys. Thank you all so much.